Team, welcome back to another episode of Live, Perform, Compete. I'm joined here today on Zoom, as always, with Andy Edwards.
Hello.
Hello, Andy. Sorry, I cut you off. You were just talking about you go down these rabbit holes. I do it all the time. I'm actually kicking off the episode with a massive one already. So, kind of something from me. I heard of Andy Edwards firstly through Tamarind, who's been on the show many a time, one of my athletes and coaches here at Coastal Fitness. In her lead up to finishing on the podium in CrossFit Yaz, the CrossFit Games, Andy was working closely with the team. He's also the coach to Jamie Green and Kelly Friel, a Masters athlete. But kind of like myself, he runs an affiliate for a strength and conditioning gym over in Wales. He has an online program called Odyssey Training. And he's been in the game for a long old time. But let me stop talking. Andy, let me hand this over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Team, I'm Andy Edwards. I'm currently residing and probably forever will be based in Cardiff, Wales in the UK. It's meant to be the summer, but it's still kind of grey outside. So you probably don't envy me living over here for climate wise. But yeah, I mean, I've been involved in CrossFit since 2008 when I did my first workout, all the way up till now. Over that time, I guess, I'd like to say I've done everything at some point, whether it's, coach, compete, own an affiliate, do some online programming. I just love health and fitness, and I think the CrossFit mythology is, it's basically what's accelerated everyone towards, living a healthier lifestyle, and that's why I'm all for it, basically. As an intro, I'm just a bit like, okay, how deep do we want to go? So I'll leave that to you.
I mean, Andy, you wear a lot of different hats. You've got an affiliate, as you said. You've got your online training programs. You're a part of the level 1 staff. And again, you coach athletes individually as well. Maybe tell us a little bit about kind of what you're doing right now with your time.
With my time, we're currently in lockdown, week 17 in the UK, and Wales as a separate country within the UK, we're a little bit further behind England. So like England gets to open their gyms up on the 25th, and at the moment there's no confirmed date of when we can do that in Wales. So my time's been taken up with moving a gym, having a new child, managing 2 lovely girls and a fantastic wife, and then obviously making sure that the guys that I'm working with remotely are getting enough training in based on what is available to them and working towards the goals which they have. So it's like anything in the fitness industry, it's fairly multifaceted, very busy. Got to try and keep myself organized because I kind of slip up when I don't, like anyone. But yeah, it's I guess you can relate to this, Ed. When you are working in the fitness industry, it isn't just a case of going in, doing a 9 till 5. You have to have many fingers and different pies in regards to managing your workflow, basically.
Awesome. Andy, let's start with a bit of context here. You started CrossFit 2008, that's early days. Very early days.
It's pretty OG. I mean, it's not as OG as some people out there, but I played a good level of rugby up until I was about 21, 22. I mean, I got to the highest position, highest accolade that I could at that age level, but then just didn't make the final cut when it came to being a professional rugby player. Plus, I was in university at the time, so I was put all my eggs in the one basket with the rugby, and I needed to pull my finger out. So, cut a long story short, highly competitive. Loved my training. One of those guys who went to the gym twice a day, probably not doing the best kind of stuff, too much tries and buys, because as I've got older, I've got back to doing buys and tries now. But didn't see a future in the fitness industry, even though I trained as a PT, and then drifted off into the corporate world for a couple of years. Woke up one day, hated life, as a couple of people do, and decided, right, enough is enough. I'm going to travel and go try and find myself. But before I went away, a guy I used to play rugby with, Ollie Mansbridge, who is now he's one of the owners of CrossFit Bath, and he is the UK manager employed by CrossFit, so country manager, said, "Hey, I know you love your training. Why don't you come across and try this weird stuff that we're doing?" He says weird because he says, "I just think you'll love it because you like your training." I ended up going to a community center, which was based on the first floor, and got introduced to things like thrusters and doing mixed modal training. What, you mean I'm going to run and lift weights? I mean, like, what are you on about? He's just like, just try it. And was hooked from that moment onwards. And that's the only time I think I've ever been sick doing a CrossFit workout. Was my first one, because you just don't know what's in store. So you just take all the brakes off and you just go straight in and away you go. And then, cut a long story short, ended up in Australia. And out in Australia, CrossFit had a little bit more traction because, generally they're a couple of years ahead in terms of the fitness industry. And just was friends with people who were setting up their affiliate, CrossFit Active, who there's a guy called Chad McKay and Luke Starr. And CrossFit Active, he finished 4th at the games, sent multiple teams to the games. Chad's been to the games himself. So I was blessed with having a relationship with someone who went to the games early on and was introduced via the competitive kind of nature of CrossFit, which, as a former competitive rugby player, I guess it spoke volumes to me. I was just like, wow, I get it. There's more of a story in and around that in Australia, which I can go into a bit more detail later on. But yeah, and everything just sort of spitballed over from there. Then really I came back to the UK, set up Dragon CrossFit, the affiliate. Been running that since the end of 2010, and there's just the logic. At that current moment, being based from 2008, the logical steps are always led from an affiliate owner, trying to share the knowledge of health and fitness via the CrossFit methodology into some coaching and programming, because I was my compet, even though it was, I wasn't necessarily short-lived, but with the regionals, I went to the regionals a couple of times. We almost qualified a team to the games from Dragon CrossFit in 2014, but we unfortunately just fell outside of the qualifying group. And it's gone on from there. I was introduced to a couple of athletes who've gone on to do some great things, and it's just by, like anything, I guess, a little bit of work, a little bit of luck, that I've managed to make a decent career so far within the world of CrossFit health and fitness, and trying to just help people along, really. But yeah, it's been a interesting and tough old journey, to say the least. I think with the lockdown, it's been most taxing personally, because obviously people have still got this intent to want to train, but it's also trying to get them to train the best way that they can at this moment in time, based on the circumstances which are in front of them. And so it's been fairly multifaceted in terms of that. With the competitive athletes, we've had to do the best we can with the equipment that they've got. So Jamie, was lucky enough to have a home gym, but was limited in some of the exercises that we could do. So we could spend some time maybe specifically training towards some barbell movements, and she had the Rogue in there. Kelly, that we've been working with, we were working towards her going to the games, and her training was on one tangent, and then not all of a sudden, but because of the COVID-19, the masters weren't obviously able to go, so we've sort of deviated the training away in another direction, sort of fixing on the weaknesses, etc. So yeah, lots going on. And as I said, my story's not that interesting. I'm pretty sure people want to spend more time hearing what the top end people are doing. But yeah, it's been a good ride, and I'm enjoying the process at the moment. Me personally, my training, doing a bit of hypertrophy, neglected that for some chasing some functional fitness. So as I get older, I think, I quite fancy just putting on a little bit more muscle before I dive straight back into it, like everyone does. It's just all I do is just buys and tries on a Friday. So
I'm interested, Andy, like hearing about your story there. You work with a lot of folks in the fitness space. I know your affiliate is. I mean, do you guys have the word CrossFit tied into your affiliate name?
Yes and no. On the website, it will be. So I'm a very proud CrossFit affiliate, but we don't just offer CrossFit. So it's our core business. But as the way I want to try and develop the actual affiliate itself is that it's a community and it's a place for everyone to come and train. So everything that you would expect within a CrossFit affiliate in regards to the community, in terms of taking training seriously, and we have fun taking training seriously. I want that to a at the start a bit of a broader population. And what do I mean by that is that we all know how great CrossFit is, but sometimes people take convincing in order to get through the door. Plus, I'm friends with people who do Olympic weightlifting, powerlifting. I think the I think bodybuilding gets kind of a bit of a bad rap, but if you have a look at the people who actually take bodybuilding seriously, they're legitimate athletes. It's just that their chosen field is aesthetics and not performance. So I want to create a petri dish of all those disciplines where people just respect each other's training modalities, but they're all on the same wavelength in terms of, when they turn up, they train, they have fun, and, it's in a respectful environment. As I said to you in sort of the preamble, it's like if someone wants to come and do yoga, they're not going to tap into Google, I want to do yoga in a CrossFit gym. So it's just marketing stuff like that, in terms of the studios, in terms of the new facility we're moving into, it allows us to do that. So it's just a bit of a broader, a broader prescription, but CrossFit is still our bread and butter and always will be.
I'm interested in how has Dragon CrossFit evolved over the years since 2010 to now being this kind of this facility that offers a lot of different training modalities, but the community element is still a big part of it. How has your business evolved since 2010 to now?
So on returning from traveling, there was no CrossFit affiliate or gym based out of Cardiff. So I'm from another town in Wales, Swansea, and there was a couple in Swansea already. It seems to be, I don't know why Swansea seems to just start a little bit before Cardiff, because they've even got like cryotherapy and flotation tanks down in Swansea. We've got none of that in Cardiff. Bear in mind, we're a capital city, apparently. 2010, I just went up there, became a personal trainer, started doing like the group fitness kind of thing prior to affiliation. I was trying to find premises. It was a bit of a big step for me. Was working out of a functional gym, so not a global commercial gym. Was working out of a functional gym. As the classes started to increase in popularity, I started to try and find the right location. And I ended up walking into a gym called Train Station 2, where massive space. It was about 12,000 square foot. But it was a gym which just didn't know what it wanted to be. I didn't know the history behind it at the time, etc. But it was an incumbent gym that had been there, now around 10 years before I even walked in there. But anyway, it had the space, had a couple of lifting platforms. And then I just approached the owner and just said, look, this is what I want to do. The owner, Simon, then ended up becoming my first business partner. And then we went into business and set up Dragon CrossFit, and which realistically was a system in place within another gym. So, we did all the fundamentals, all that kind of stuff. And it just grew organically, like most CrossFit gyms did back in 2010, 2011. And as it started to grow, it started to take up more space of the gym. And in the gym there was stuff like there was hammer strength machines, there was a boxing ring, there was loads of space, but it was just everything. It was a little bit of a mess, but over the time and over the course of that, 7 to 8 years, CrossFit just enveloped everything. So I would say probably by about 2012, 2013, the what was 2 platforms engulfed the whole 12,000 square foot area into a CrossFit gym. And then, I guess we've always been a CrossFit gym. What happened along the way, another business partner came in, Robin Taylor, who was an ex-international rugby player. And then from there, the business grew even further. We opened up 2 locations, so one in the south of the city, one in the north of the city. So we, for 2000, end of 2012 or beginning of 2013 until 2016, we operated 2 locations. And then, like anything in a business partnership, each one of us had different ideas, and we ended up dissolving that business. And then I went off on my own with the CrossFit gym in the south side, and then Robin went on with the one in the north, and then Simon got bought out basically. And so we went our separate ways. And then since 2016 November, it's been my responsibility rather than the collectives in terms of growing Dragon CrossFit and all those kind of things, which you can be familiar with yourself, is in regards to trying to etch my personality on it, trying to do the things my way, those kinds of, and a lot of trial and error. The unit that we were in was all, since I've even been in there, it's right in the centre of Cardiff, but it's in an old industrial area, which was always been up for sale for redevelopment. Cut a long story short, that's always hindered us in terms of the investment that we've put into the gym. So as of the end of last year, an opportunity arose where there was a new facility, because the impending closure of the original facility in the centre of town was always going to happen. So this gave us the opportunity to move away. With the affiliate owner kind of piece, though, we've moved and lockdowns occurred, so no one's had the opportunity to train in the new facility yet. But it's all those kind of things. You go up, you go down, you try and see what works. I made the decision actually, just to change the marketing ever so slightly, because as I said, Dragon CrossFit, if people want to come to a CrossFit gym, they know there's CrossFit there, and they're going to do well. I just wanted to broaden the horizon as much as possible, because yes, you cut me, I bleed CrossFit. I think it's the best thing since sliced bread. However, I think fitness as a market is much, much bigger, and I think everyone who just enjoys hard training, taking it seriously, or having fun and taking it seriously, and working towards a goal, whether that be powerlifting, aesthetics, a little, confidence, whatever they want to do. I just want to try and encompass that all under one roof. And as I said, if someone doesn't want to lift the barbell, I'm like, okay, no problem. I'd want to maybe try and encourage them. And I just think chucking them in the deep end there for my market, for Cardiff, that's what I want to try and do. So that's where, we're always going to be an affiliate. I just slightly changed the name ever so slightly on what we can offer.
Yeah. With regards to coaching, Andy, what got you into working with athletes? Obviously, Jamie Green is probably your biggest name, but I also know about Tammy and Yaz. They had an amazing year that year. They went to the game, and I know you were a part of their build-up. Yeah, what was that first introduction? How did you get into that?
I just started doing it for the guys at the gym. When I first started competing, it was like one man and his dog. So that's probably how I ended up going to regionals, because it was only about 5 people and they were taking 5 people. So I coming from a competitive background, it just seemed like the natural thing early on within CrossFit to just start competing. And then as the gym grew, I just decided to start doing some online stuff for the guys at the gym, and it sort of materialized out of that. And then, we had some success as a gym. So I'm always to the viewpoint, like you're only, a coach is only as good as the people he works with. All right. So, I'm just very lucky with some of the people that I work with, and I'll always hold my hand up to that. And I think any coach that starts to take credit for an athlete's achievements is like whatever sport. You've got to understand. It's like the whole Michael Jordan thing. It's like they did really well because of Michael Jordan. And like, and the name. I've even watched the thing, but
I have
back to
The Last Dance.
The Last Dance. Yeah. So Phil.
Not Phil Knight. Phil Jackson.
Yeah, Phil Jackson, right? Fantastic coach and the best management. And you can see from his lineage, he was a competitive athlete as well. So it worked really well. But, the combination of all those athletes together, and being driven by Phil Jackson in the right direction is what gets it there. So it's an amalgamation of everything. And, that kind of like happened with, CrossFit. We had a lot of competitive athletes come in through the doors, and, we were able to then progress on quite well when, you didn't have super teams and stuff like that. So I've always had the things that we've done really well for a homegrown team. And I think us and CrossFit Bath, in terms of a homegrown team in the UK, have always done the best. Like JST, great team, great setup. Steve Fawcett knows exactly what he's doing, being a CrossFit Games athlete himself. But that was a super team. It was, the people came down from all parts of the country in order to go to the games. Does that make sense? Whereas we had a collective of people from Cardiff, and then Bath had a collective of people from Bath. So it's one of those things. We just got the best out of those people at the best time. And then it sort of spiraled in there. I guess when you start to have some success, you want to try and make it bigger. So I've tried a couple of iterations in terms of online programming. I think when anyone starts off, they just try and do a price to try and get people in. So, it went from, trying to work with people for, £80 per month, bespoke programming, which is, it's basically you have to have 20, 30 people on your roster. And then all of a sudden you just end up shooting yourself because there's so much stress. And on Sunday night, you'll get all this program out because you don't want to let people down. And so it's sort of matured through that. And, I've never done a blog post program because even though it's good, sort of good to follow, I've never thought that you're going to get the best results out of it. You're going to get some results out of it. And so, as I've progressed on in my coaching, or I would say programming journey, and I'll talk to you about the whole coaching programming thing. The number of clients I've worked with has got smaller and smaller and smaller because I want to be able to deliver more time and more quality in that realm. It's still not where I want it to be. And I think you'll know from your experience, Ed, that it's the time commitment and the sacrifice from being an online coaching programmer is fairly significant. And I think there's a disconnect in terms of the rate in which you can charge and the amount of work that has to go into it. And so that's why it's I just keep it fairly small. I'd like to do more because, I think I'd like to help more people, but it just comes down to time, trying to balance everything out. But in a roundabout way, it's through these introductions. So Elliot Simmons, Jamie's husband now. There we are. So he is a very good friend of mine. So that's where the link with CrossFit Yas and all that happened. But basically, he when he qualified for regionals, it was the year that we qualified, 2014 with regionals. So he started to come and train at Dragon. He was at CrossFit Cardiff. And then he decided to come and do the majority of his training with us in the build-up to 2014 regionals in Copenhagen. And in that time, he had the opportunity. So in the team that we had, and this was back in the iteration of like 6 men, 6 women, we had 5 of our team qualify as individuals to the CrossFit regionals. But yet we still didn't qualify to go to the CrossFit Games. So that year, we won the CrossFit Open as a team. We were on target to go to the games in the top 3 spots. It wasn't top 5. And then basically it came down to missing a snatch. I mean, we finished 3 of the workouts in the top 5, like 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. And then because we missed a snatch, and it was just everyone had 2 lifts.
That was a hang snatch, wasn't it?
it was a hang snatch. And look, I can take part of the blame with that. I missed my first one. Like I'm in the warm up area doing multiple reps at 100 for a hang snatch. Right? Yeah, I'm going to open at 225. And what do I do on the first one? I miss it. So it's just one of those things. You take it down as learning. And it didn't come down to that. It came down to a 40 kilo snatch that one of our girls missed, and it was tough at the time, but that's sport. But coming back to the whole Elliot thing, Elliot then went on, had the taste of it, went out to Yass early doors. Like he was one of the founder coaches there, was programming for Elliot. He said, "Oh, I've started training with this girl. She's pretty good. I kind of fancy her as well." And I wasn't dealing directly with Jamie at that moment. That year, all of the guys came there. So it's Tammy, Natan, Anthony, Sabine, and all that. They were, really good athletes. The way in which they qualified through the game, I mean, they were certainly a really strong team coming out of that Middle Eastern region, or whatever it was called back then. And so, they the first time I was training them, they didn't qualify. So this was 2015, I think, didn't qualify. So I was training them all because they came, I can't even remember how it all worked. They got disqualified. That's it.
Yes.
Because
it was a visa issue, wasn't it?
Visa issue, yeah. So it was, they won, but it was, or came second to OPEX or something. But there was a visa issue. And then the second year, they all went and did all their stuff, them in themselves, them individuals working as a team towards regionals. And then when they qualified from regionals, they then just asked me to come on board. And in that time, I was training Jamie anyway. So I think after those regionals, I just started working with Jamie as an individual and Elliot as an individual at that time. And then when they qualified for the actual games, Elliot, in his excitement, just said, "Oh yeah, we've been chatting, can you help us out?" And so it was really good from the perspective of programming for a number of people, trying to see whose strengths and weaknesses are, getting creative with the workouts, because I think that's the team competition is more about teamwork, knowing each other inside and out, having respect for what your strengths, what your weaknesses are, giving people the opportunity to see when some people can step up and take the position of others, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it was good. And they ended up finishing third that year, and it was it was great. I mean, not a lot of people know that. I'm not one to blow my own trumpet in terms of, I just worked with the guys and they just helped them out. The athletes are always going to have all the accolades. And then from there, we know what's happened with Jamie. Elliot picked up some injuries and started working with James Jousey, who he's continued to work with and had some, great success. And then, I've had the opportunity to work with Jamie for a number of years now. So if we say 2015 to now, so it's 5 years. And over that time, we've been able to help her realize her athletic potential, because, she's a great athlete. She was destined to get into, the elite level echelons anyway. But it's just making sure that, she can consistently perform what she's done year in, year out, and it's as the field's got harder, we've had to really push and try and change direction and pivot bits and pieces of training in order to work her weaknesses. Because, one thing that we say on the level 1 staff, when we talk about, what is fitness, is, you are only as fit as your weakest link. And so every season after, say, the games or a competition, it's been, well, how do we address the weaknesses or the areas that need improvement over your strengths? So that's what we've been doing. I think with Jamie, the stuff which she needs to work on is generally the hardest stuff. It's in, she's got all the gymnastic skills, but it's, well, how do we get one of the smallest athletes in the field to get exponentially stronger, and so that's what we've been working towards. I mean, cardio, and that's all I say to her. I'm like, look, the girls who are 5'6", 5'7", and weighing a bit more, it's a lot easier for them to pull X amount on the rower. So yeah, you have to pull harder. So we have to make you exponentially fitter in order to pull harder and not to have, you know, so stuff like that. And, you know, she's been great. You know, had the great opportunity to work with her. And yeah, and from there, I've just had, you know, been allowed the opportunity to work with some, you know, a number of people, and it doesn't matter what level they're at. I really want to see them do the best. I guess with the more junior athletes and then, you know, the non-competitive ones, is just giving them the right dose response, because everyone wants everything at once, rather than, you know, just like, well, let's just focus on you know, getting you a little bit stronger first before we move on to that one. So yeah, it's great. I've got a variety of people that I work with now. I limit it to 10, and from there, I can give those 10 individuals the time that it warrants, basically.
Awesome. Andy, I want to talk about two things. I want to go back a little bit to your journey working with Yaz. And I'm interested, were you working remotely with them? So they were all obviously based in Abu Dhabi. You're in Wales. So you've also you've dropped a couple of times the difference between coaching and programming. And I'd like us to dive into that a little bit. But, you know, as a coach working remotely, you've got a team of six really talented individuals. You just said it yourself. Sometimes the best individuals don't necessarily make the best teams. But, you know, speaking to a lot of the people on that Yaz team since then, you know, one thing they said, like collectively, they were just a really, really good team. I know a part of it was I think all three of them were couples, weren't they, or partnerships, which is obviously quite helpful.
Very
but, you know,
incestuous.
yeah, very much. I didn't want to use the word, but yeah, you've used it now. But, you know, what do you do as a coach coming into that, knowing that you got these athletes on the other side of the world who are vying to get to the top of the CrossFit Games? You know, what was your approach in that process?
Just giving them something which would unify them and, you know, bond them together, because they can't train together all the time. So it's just giving them some focus days. So let's say a particular weekend, making that there was a particular goal that they could do. So, you know, the weekend was the big focus for them, and then just giving them bits and pieces. So one of the athletes might be doing a hang snatch, one of them might be doing a full snatch, but they're doing the same things on the same day. And it just allows them to get into that same wavelength. You are right. I think for a team environment, it's all about the, you know, the energy in which they train, how they rub off against one another. Not how they rub each other off, right? Just making sure, right? It's just, you know, how they bounce off each other. And I think that's the crux of it. I mean, you know, if you take the best CrossFit team in the world, CrossFit Mayhem, right? I mean, they've got a guy who knows what he's doing, all right, Rich Froning, but they train together as a unit the majority of the time. And I just think you're always going to get the best results from the environment in a team situation, if that makes sense. Yeah. So
yeah, and let me just jump in there real quick, Andy. Like, you know, environment versus program, I think it's a big conversation that a lot of people in the space talk about. Probably, you know, more so when you're looking at like people who are maybe have more lofty goals to get higher in the sport. You know, it's the toss up between having an individualized training program, which is going to really target my weakness, but it may mean that I'm training alone a lot of the time, and you know, I'm by myself, versus following a more generic training program, but I'm involved in an environment of people who are perhaps better than me, who are pushing me to be better. Of course, it's very case dependent, because if you have massive glaring weaknesses, like you said, the individualized route might be a better option. But, you know, how do you kind of approach that? And I'm sure you probably have people always coming up to you thinking that individualized coaching is going to be the best thing for them, when perhaps sometimes it's actually not.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. I mean, I can wear a couple of hats for this. As an affiliate owner, I've always been aware how individual programs can disrupt the community, can, you know, cause a little bit of tension. So one of the things that I've always tried to do with an individual athlete, depending on the level that they're at, is that I always want them to be involved with at least one or two group sessions. So whether that means that they have a couple of people train with them, whether it means I prefer for them, if they are in a CrossFit gym, that they just jump into a CrossFit class. I'm like, you know, it's just fitness. Please don't stress about it. You know, because of the intensity, that session is not about, whether you're going to be lifting 15 kilo dumbbells versus 22.5 kilo dumbbells. And I've had some kind of heated debates about this with people in my gym who follow other programs, and these are good friends of mine. And how can I put it? It's one, experiencing it myself with the various hats that I've had on, because I feel as if I am a little bit justified in my viewpoint, having been at the competitive level, having spent a lot of time with people like Chad McKay, Jamie, Elliot, all these kind of people. And, even to the fact that when we used to go out on the pre-games trips, you'd be there, so Sam Briggs would be there in the house, so you get to learn from the best people and what they do. And so it's a question of, just trying to verbalize that. But coming back to how it amalgamates, but there's got to be a risk reward scenario. So training within the community, training within your gym, making it for a better environment for you to continue to go on and do your own individual stuff. That focus session has to be that. It's community building and intensity, because I think we all will agree, and some people might disagree and say, I can train at intensity on my own. Yeah, you can, but you will always do more in a group environment. And it doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's like you sat next to someone on a salt bike, you're always going to try and crank out an extra calorie or two in that competitive environment. And I just think that's what the balance has to be about. Because if you are just doing an individual programming, if you are one of the best athletes in the world, guess what? You're going to get there anyway. So it's not a question of, well, that athlete's amazing, they can train on their own. They're going to get there anyway. I think when you want to actually push on intensity in session, there needs to be other people there, and you have to drag them in and what have you. So as a programmer, I've always been aware of it. I always talk to my athletes in regards to where can you train with other people. Realistically, the majority of the people that I work with are affiliate owners anyway. So, they've got their own sort of schedule to work towards. But yeah, I think it's a massive consideration. And I think it's a balance of the two, because I'm a massive advocate of people, just having a great environment, but doing what's best for them at the same time. Does that make sense? Because I think, I don't know how it runs with you, but I think sometimes when people go off on an individual programming, they tend to isolate themselves. But the thing is, it has to happen at some point if someone's working towards a specific goal. But it's just trying to balance the two. A thing where I think we sort of touched on in terms of the coaching and the programming scenario. I much prefer to work with someone on a face-to-face basis. So it's trying to get the balance of the two. I'm not too do you have any views on that one yourself? Or
I mean, everything you're saying, I feel very strongly for the whole group versus individualized approach. For sure, like there's always, you could justify it both ways, but I think, even as an elite athlete who's looking to get there, to the top of the sport, at the end of the day, your sport's going to require for you to race other people. If you can do that in a group environment, like you just, no matter how much intensity you bring, you just can't replicate someone else being next to you who's a rep ahead or a rep behind chasing you. So,
sorry to cut in.
Go on.
I was just, you have a look at, if we talk about CrossFit as the sport of CrossFit, the two most dominant individuals, train with one another, have eyes on the majority of the time, when we're talking Tia, Claire and Matt Fraser, and that's actually taken them to the next level, because they are, they're fundamentally, both of them came second on their first ever games. So they're amazing athletes, but then the gulf between them and others is just getting greater because of the way that they push one another in training now. And I think that's what some people are just missing. It'd be good to see the Noah Olsen and Chandler Smith scenario play out, because obviously they've been pushing one another. But I just think that's something where people don't talk about it. It's like, this, that. And I'm like, they have fun, they push each other, they support each other, the environment that they're in. And guess what? Where are they based? Well, they're based in Tennessee. Well, not Tennessee, Cookeville, Tennessee, where Rich Froning's been doing that, creating that environment for the last 5 to 7 years. You know what I mean? That's where there's a lot of potency in that. I mean, there's no special programming. There's there's guidance, right? So let's say if you want to talk to big brands, you might Comp Train versus Invictus versus Training Think Tank and all that kind of stuff. But look, they're all doing in a roundabout the way the same thing. Okay, we're trying to get the best out of the athletes. They're all intelligent guys. They know not to break people, and it just comes down to the winning environment. Invictus brought in a lot of good athletes, created a winning environment, and then that's where their legacy came from. Same as CrossFit New England when they were there. Okay, it's that whole kind of environment. And I just think that needs to bleed out into the individual base a little bit more. Because that's what JST did when Steve went to the games. Him and Phil were training quite regularly, and trying to get themselves and push themselves, and it was a great environment there. I think that's one of the big things, in terms of athletes' development is if they it's the 1%, isn't it? Those people are going to go there. They're going to have a program which is going to get them a little bit further. And this is the stuff where I start talking to Jamie now, because Jamie has gradually got further and further up the rankings within CrossFit, obviously culminating with a 3rd place finish last in the CrossFit Games, finished 4th in the Rogue, was in the top 3 right up until the last workout, and I guess it's just, it's just one of those, she's at that elite level. And so the margins are, are small. And I've spoken to her time again now. I think, for the next thing for her to push that extra 1% is how do we start to develop that hands-on coaching, because it is hard over a screen. I could sit down, I could do some PT, but it's not there. It's not the change. It's it's a commitment from me, and it's a commitment from the athlete as well. I always use the snatch scenario. It's I program power snatch, and I notice that it's going terribly from the floor. And I'm like, right, let's change that ever so slightly. So you're going to pause here, or let's move to a hang. Whereas if a program says power snatch, what's an athlete going to do? Power snatch. Yeah. And it doesn't matter how it feels. They think, I owe it to the coach. I need to just power snatch. And I guess, depending on the relationship, depending on the training age of an athlete, there can be some variation there, but that's in a crux. That's what I'm trying to get across, is that you've got a program versus the coaching element, and it's trying to find that balance online, which I personally find a little bit of a struggle, because of the time commitment to it. But I'm just being honest, in terms of like.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with all of that. And I think as an affiliate ourselves, we started very much as a group-based training facility, and then at the same time where OPT back then was kind of really launching the individualized training, we kind of got sucked down that rabbit hole a little bit as well. And I had a particular interest in working with high-level athletes, and so you talked about how toxic it can be in a community when you have group community and an individual community all training the same floor, fighting over the same space at the same times. And what we actually then had was this perception that individual coaching was the best thing for everyone. There was a higher price point. They looked like they were getting more attention. They were doing stuff that they really needed. So then we had a big shift from our group community all wanting individualized coaching. We then realized that, individual coaching actually wasn't, because they were losing the environment aspect, which you've just been talking about. And, like you also said, like how hard it is to really coach someone just via a Google Doc or a coaching application that you're just reading results through. And, we then actually had a massive shift of people who'd gone to the individualized route, who then wanted to be back into the group program. And now for us, we really do emphasize the group environment and the group program. We try and semi-individualize in a way where, like you said, you're constantly having to educate. And it goes the same for individual clients, I think, as well as group clients, but always educating, trying to teach people how to self-regulate, how to make adjustments on loads and sets and reps and intensity all the time. But like you said, it's exactly the same for individual clients. And I think when you can have even small stints of time, like once every 3 months or a month, where you get a few days of face-to-face contact with a client, that might be enough to then allow them to go back into wherever it is they normally train with some newly acquired knowledge and experience, and just be able to take your relationship so much more. And as a coach, you just know they're going to get so much more out of the training program. So I fully I've been down almost the exact same journey. It feels when you're talking about it, it's making me laugh a little bit. But certainly for us, stepping away now, being really selective about who we say yes to when it comes to individualized programming online. And it's not an elitist. It's not saying yes to better athletes and no to less capable athletes, but, just really taking into account training age, experience, goals, and like really how much they want it. And I think as well, just the ability to actually at some point in time be present on site, training with our environment, with our people, and working with your coach is just so important, both for the coach and for the athlete.
Yeah, I think as the sport develops, let's say, there might be some capacity in order for that to happen, because, someone like, Katrin Tanya moved over and, was living up in New England. And when she was on site and when that first initially happened, what she do? She wins 2 back-to-back CrossFit Games. So, there is a little bit of, there's some substance about it. But yeah, it's trying to find the balance, isn't it? Because, every time we do talk CrossFit and programming, there's always a tendency to go off into the competitive side. But, the day in, day out running of these, or running of the methodology happens at, baseline level. Is trying to get people fit and healthy. And if someone shows some level of ability, then obviously they can go off and do it. I mean, when it comes to the competitive field, I am one of the my school of thought is, look, if someone wants to compete in fitness, then I'm not no one to stop them. It's just at what level. Because if you ever look at football, okay, how many leagues are there in football globally? I mean, you've obviously got the best players in the world, and then you've got someone who's going to play Sunday league, and they play it because they love it. All right, and they might go training once a week with their mates, but even that training's working them towards playing Sunday league football. And I think the sport of fitness needs to be like that. You've got some people who want to just crush a class, get it done, and then go off and do their normal thing. But then you've got someone who wants to compete, and I guess the hard thing is now, Ed, is that, and it's always will be, is just trying to manage that person's expectations on where they can get to, because then that warrants, the level of commitment that person wants to put on. It's interesting. It's like, I love it, but it's also very stressful at the same time, So it's interesting. It's interesting that you went full tilt onto the individual, and then would you say you're in the middle now then, in terms
Definitely,
of how you offer it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say definitely. I mean, we even have we have like a group. I wouldn't call it a blog. It's just, I guess, a group subscription that people online can join. But we've kind of tried to emulate what we have in-house on the online. So we have different training groups. Each training group has its own set of prerequisites that athletes have to be able to meet before they join the program. And that's just trying to ensure that they're getting the right dose response from the training program. They can complete all the movements that are subscribed. They can lift the loads that we're prescribing. And then it's just constant review of the results that come in, and then making sure that our training program is catering to those people. And I guess, if suddenly you have an influx of really, really good athletes, that's going to skew the training, because then you've got to make loads heavier, repetitions higher, complexity higher. So yeah, it definitely is a battle. But, like you said, or like I said earlier, really reserving individualized coaching for people who I think really want it, but also really need it. And just making sure we're kind of aligned there. Otherwise, really emphasizing the group program as much as possible. And even myself, I have a coach who I've worked with for many years, since 2014. And, for probably 4 to 5 years of that has just been me training by myself, follow my program, like you said, to a T, not really deviating from the program all that much. You kind of learn over the years to adjust and change based on how you're feeling. But, now, even for myself, it's a blend of the two. Spend 2 to 3 days a week following my own classes, my own group program, like you said, to just can't replicate that intensity anymore because the fire within me just isn't as much as it was previously. And so I need that. And I also really enjoy it, like the team side and the camaraderie side of it. But then, there are still things that I want to work on. There's a lot of injuries I've had over the years that I need special consideration for. So yeah, like right now it's really a blend. And like you said, even our higher level athletes in the gym, we still push them to the group classes a couple of times a week because it's really important for them to stay connected with the community, but also to have that group environment where you're lifting or racing other people, which you just can't get by yourself.
Yeah.
So yeah, very much so.
With when we compete in competitions, we are Dragon CrossFit, Dragon Athletic, and so we as a gym have always done strength and depth origins competition, which is a 12-person competition in the UK, and we've always finished in the top 10. When we've had the strongest teams out, or we've been able to field a full team, we've always finished on the podium. And the only reason why I mention this is because we're always the oldest team, and what I mean is by age. And even on one occasion, someone said, "But the way that team looks, you'd think they finished last." Because everyone everyone else on the podium's like ripped to the gills, and we're just like average Joes. And I just think it comes from the fact that we engage with the community at least once or twice a week as that group. Saturdays is a big day for us. It's and it stems from my belief within the gym anyway, is like Saturday's just a throwdown, and it's everyone, doesn't matter what level you're at, we call it, it's where we do team wads, so it's either teams of 4, 2 pair, whatever it is, but it's just in there, it's fitness, it's 40 bodies on the floor, it's hard, it's fast, and so I think that's always led us to, if we do go and compete, because we don't, it's only like team competitions that we generally do now, but it lends itself to what we spoke about earlier in terms of environment, understanding each other's weaknesses, backing each other up in that sort of team context. And then for those who want to go and compete on the individual basis, it's the intensity. It's the intensity that you're going to work at. You're going to push yourself harder against a friend, okay? And then competing against someone that you don't know is even easier then. So yeah, it's a good mix. It's a good mix, but it's something that I think on an individual programming basis is having a conversation with the client and trying to get them into that direction as well.
Yeah. Andy, just switching gears a little bit now. Seminar staff. You've been a part of seminar staff for quite a while now, teaching, I believe, level 1, level 2. What got you involved in that in the first place?
I guess the want to work for CrossFit stems the same for everyone. April 2010, I did my level 1 in Auckland, New Zealand. And I was I'd been at the highest level of strength and conditioning, having trainers, all this kind of stuff up until the age of 22. And then at 26, I think I was in 2010, I'll have to 27, maybe 27, 26. It was 26 because I was 27 in September. Wow. I mean, they broke down a squat and I'm just like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. And just the knowledge, just the energy, just the everything that those guys on that day embodied in terms of a red shirt. I was just like, I'd love to do that one day. And then I guess it just naturally progressed. I did the level 2, and then, was it called the level 2 then? I can't remember, but the coach's prep course. Did the coach's prep course. Yeah. And one of the head trainers there, a guy called Carl Steadman, who is the original, he's probably the very first red shirt in Europe outside of America. He just suggested, oh, look, why don't you just, give the interning a go? I quite like what I've seen. And, at least, you've put your hat into the ring. And I was just like, oh yeah, I'd love to do it. I mean, I had the intention to try and do that anyway, but I just never had the confidence. And then from there, I went through the intern process. And learned a lot about myself in that. I don't know if you've, coaching the level 2s now, it's, you're trying to encourage people as best as you can, offer, feedback. And what I would say is that I think as coaches, specifically if we work within on our own and we're not used to getting feedback, that's hard. That's so hard to take, first and foremost. And so, it was just going through that process, hitting all the points that they're looking for, just trying to be a nice person, really, and, to show that you care and you want to get people to move a bit, move well. And then, I mean, I've been lucky enough. I haven't worked, early on, I didn't work as much as I work now, and that was because I was still competing at the time. So I was just trying to, mix it up. And the European team's fairly competitive in terms of bodies. I mean, just as example, I think South Wales is a bit of a hotbed for CrossFit coaches, as there are now 5 or 6 males from South Wales based in the team. So I don't know if it's heralds from the rugby day, or so it's just our dulcet tones, the way in which we coach with our accent. I'm not too sure. Anyway, so I love it. I absolutely love it. I love every time I put that shirt on. I want to try and emulate people like Matt Swift, who was the red shirt on my course. People like Lisa Ray, who was there, because you just try and empower people through fitness. I mean, it was from that level 1. I was just so buzzed up. That's why I had to jump back on a plane back to Cardiff and try and help my sister, my mum, my dad, and all that kind of stuff, to the fact that they thought I'd lost it, I'd gone completely mental. But it's that. And what I will say is that I have obviously the opportunity to do a level 1 every time I work. So I sit there, I listen to the coaches. It allows me to absorb the content of the level 1 kernel as best as possible. And I'll talk about the level 1 before the level 2. And every time I read it, it just makes more sense. And it's the logical sense, because let's not get bogged down in the strength and conditioning paraphernalia and, everything that's gone on in the last couple of months, etc. It is the best recipe for just getting someone moving well, taking, a little bit of care in their health and fitness, and, dosing the response. I do think every coach has a slightly different interpretation of Coach Glassman's vernacular. So in terms of the definition of CrossFit for me, constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity. Everyone always talks about the high intensity thing, and say, oh, you can't smash people in the face all the time. And I'm like, yeah, you can't. All right. But that's why we have rest days. But also you have to understand is that it's the best this is the way I interpret it. It's the best that person can do for that specific workout on that specific day. If they've given their best, okay, whether it's a 5, let's say it's a 10K row, and the best on their day is that they just want to row as a male a 2-minute a 2-minute split. Okay, they're not sandbagging it, but it's the best that they got on their day. They're going to get the rewards from it. It's all about the want and the effort someone is going to put in on a given day. Does that track across?
Yeah, absolutely. Which is basically what auto or self-regulated training is.
Yeah.
What do you think then, Andy? Like, as someone who's, you have in your eyes or in your head like a very clear definition of what CrossFit is. What do you think for people who are doing the level 1 and then taking it away as a coach into their affiliates or into their clients? What's the biggest maybe mistake or misunderstanding that people take away from that?
I don't. Mistakes are always there to be learned from. So I guess I would say the big thing is that you learn from them. So, hey, have I tried to give people too much intensity? Yes. For a given day, I'm there to motivate them. I'm there to make them work as hard as they can on that day. And I've crossed the line. Sometimes, and it's I'm just like, yeah, it's wrong. It just comes from experience, I guess. Yeah, I don't think you can do any mistakes. I guess I think the biggest mistake is that you do your level 1 and then you never look at the level 1 training guide again. You never look at the articles which Coach Glassman's done. You never try and implement the stuff in terms of the way in which we've spoken about it. It's the whole knees out, heels down thing. It's been bagged in the past because, like, people saying, oh, you can't drive 3 heels. It's at no point in the level 1 have we said drive 3 heels. It's heels down. It's like 3 points of contact on the floor. Spread the floor with your feet. What we want you to do is to keep the heel down. Does that make sense? It's the whole knees out thing. Or why are you telling us to put your knees out? Because the knee joint's not in line with your foot. It's not because we want them to go beyond. Can you see what I mean? It's when I guess some people start to go off and they're looking at the the minutiae of things in terms of, it's like, well, look, if you rehearse and you go and you go back and you look at things, you're always going to pick something else new up. So, and that's why I said at the beginning is that I've been in a very fortunate position that every time I work a level 1, I'm doing one, because I get the experience watching, arguably some of the best CrossFit coaches in the world do something actually which they're really good at, and it's just every time. So it's not a question of like, cool. I know I've done the fitness lecture. I will watch another coach do the fitness lecture because I will pick up something from them that I may have missed, and it's just I refine it and just try and put it into my way of trying to communicate it to other ones. But you can see how this course has just evolved and developed and got better and better and better over the years and refined, versus someone like, I know it's not me bagging any coaches or anything in any way, but if you've got someone who is the same person delivering the same thing, delivering it exactly the same every time, everything, every place, the thing doesn't develop. And I think just with the whole collective, and that's why it's been a big melting pot, is that it's just been able to develop over time. And it's a bit, this bleeds out, you can only work a level 2 once you're qualified enough on the level 1. And so again, every step of the way you're progressing. And I just think that's, I guess, a curse of, coaching really, is that as soon as you think you know everything, then that's when the shit hits the fan really. So, and that's in any facet of life really. You've just got to keep, reevaluating and seeing if you are doing the best thing. I mean, and that's the other thing as well. It was like when, we're talking specifically about the level 1, every weekend we give the seminar, we're giving feedback on how we can improve. And that's the biggest thing. And that's what a lot of coaches don't have access to, is the fact that they've got no one to sort of like say, hey, why don't you try it this way? It didn't really come across how you wanted it to, that kind of stuff. And that's why I think a big coaching network's always going to be positive moving forward, is because you just bounce ideas off one another. I guess you've got you and your brother, is you do you work together or?
Yeah, we've set, I think, we're lucky to have a talented team of coaches who are all full-time, all striving to the same goals, who have similar values. But yeah, you're dead right. Just daily conversations in the coaching space, like you're always learning something. Everyone's got their own strong suits.
Yeah.
Andy, what are your thoughts now on, obviously there's a lot of changes that have happened while we're on topic of CrossFit, a lot of changes and probably still a lot of unknown at the moment. We're kind of all sitting waiting to see what's going to happen. But I guess firstly, if you got any thoughts on the matter, but kind of what would you like to see in the future now? It doesn't necessarily have to be changes, but there's 2 levels. I guess we talk about the affiliate level and we talk about CrossFit as a sport. What would you like to see going forward?
Awesome. Yeah. And, look, I only see positive change in moving forward with everything. What would I like to see? I just guess more communication. I think that's it. With what's gone on over the last couple of months, I think that's been the biggest thing that's been highlighted in terms of maybe with an element of improvement, is that people want to have more communication with HQ. I think Coach Glassman's viewpoint in terms of, what he believed the affiliate to be probably needed to mature, and it is starting to mature now, like with people like having country managers, someone that an affiliate owner can speak to directly in terms of their concerns, and so it's not necessarily going all the way back to America and that kind of thing. I think those positive steps are happening, and we just have to see how that matures, basically. Look, we're still CrossFit is still the largest, if you say it, gym chain, fitness chain in the world. And you don't get there by accidents, because you've got passionate people who want to help people. And I think that's the message that needs to be pushed across, I guess, into the realms outside of the functional fitness bubble that we have. Because, do I feel that constantly varied functional movements executed at relatively high intensity is going to improve someone's health and fitness? Yes, I do. And I think as a brand, it's never really been one to make negative connotations against anything else. It's just said, look, there is an alternative. Whereas I do feel as if there are people who have made a career within because of CrossFit, who then bag it, and I'm just like, well, that's just not cool. It's one of those things. You just, yes, question it, but don't bag it, because people making careers off the back of it, and it's doing the right things for the right people for the right reasons. That's another thing for Coach Glassman. So yeah, I mean, yeah, making affiliate owners talk to one another, share ideas. I don't know what the situation's like in Hong Kong. I mean, not everyone can like everyone. I get it, but like, people feel as if, not so much anymore, but like when CrossFit gyms are opening up, some people felt as if, you're stealing my market, all this kind of jazz, and it just, all that stems from is a lack of communication. Right, it's there's a massive market out there. There's only 3 CrossFit affiliates in Cardiff now. Okay, two have de-affiliated after the last couple of months. One's gonna close its doors. And the population of Cardiff is close to 400,000. I'm pretty sure there's enough people for us all to have an equal amount of business, and that's the way it goes now, because people are going to resonate with one coach, one style of training, and not with another. I just think, if people can just start talking with one another, and on the simplest level, affiliate owner to affiliate owner to their members. And then the affiliate owner being able to speak up the channel, to people like the country manager, and then that goes on and it gets fed back. I mean, since the changes have happened, there's been an email every week addressed to the affiliate owners from CrossFit. So the steps are going in the right direction. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I was fortunate enough to be on a call with Eric Rosa, the new incoming CEO, and the dude was super positive, had a couple of ideas, which if they come to fruition, that would be awesome. I mean, it's not my place to talk about them, but yeah, I mean, if it comes about, then great. Now the sport, well, I think the sport is going to be led by the athletes, and I think that should be. I think the biggest thing for me is that the CrossFit Games is the crowning of the fittest men and women in the world. I personally believe that there has to be multi-levels, though, because, as I said, everyone wants to compete at some, or let's say, someone wants to compete, they need to compete in the right level for them. So I think if we take the American approach of sport, which is elite, so like Major League Baseball, Major League everything is just the elite level, and then if you don't make the elite level, well, you're done after college. I just don't think that will work particularly well across the world. It might work well in America, okay, and the biggest market for CrossFit that still stands as America at the moment. But in terms of this global appeal, I think there needs to be some level of organization or league or something like that. Whether or not that come to fruition, I don't know. But yeah, that's my viewpoint on it. The better the top end become, and the more of a carrot that there is for you to become a professional CrossFit athlete, I think that's going to allow a greater participation in the sport. I guess it's still young. It's still 10 years, and there's going to be a couple of changes along the way. I'd be excited to see what the next one is next year. But if you have a look at gym-based sports, which CrossFit is at the end of the day, you've got powerlifting. I always look and mirror the whole bodybuilding place, competition scene. So like you've got local and national competitions, then you've got the biggest one, which is the Olympia, and then obviously now you've got the Arnold, which is starting to come up, and that all tends in terms of the prize money and what have you. But I think the CrossFit Games is always going to be seen as the pinnacle of the functional fitness world, and if another thing comes along, or another competition comes along, it's only going to be on the elite level, because the only way that you can ever prize anything away from CrossFit being the best thing is if you get massive investment, you pull elite level athletes out. As you see, that's the only way. So it's only managing the elite level, and I think CrossFit as a sport needs to have all the levels, and whether the open, which is, anyone can do it, can be used to gauge the level of competition. And then people say, oh, look, this is a competition for, people who finished in and around these categories. That's the way I'd like to see it. And then maybe that's because of the tradition, the traditional league system, which I've seen within sport over here. That would be my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And do you think that that's going to be something CrossFit will take ownership and responsibility on? Will that come from HQ down to create this system, or could it still happen if individual event organized, like what we've seen with sanctioned events come around? Could they take responsibility to then form national governing bodies or create leagues? How do you envision it might potentially?
I'm in the fortunate position that a good friend of mine runs the Strength and Depth. Ollie Mansbridge runs the Strength and Depth, the UK sanctional, and so they have what feels like a fitness festival there. So the weekend just gone, I must have only seen about one or two of the elite level events. Yes, that's going to draw in the crowds, etc. But behind that, you had the affiliate event, and behind that, you had the masters events as well. I can't remember whether it was teams there or not, but you had all the masters at different levels, and so they run those competitions on a separate dance floor. All right, so and they did get to go on the big one from time to time, and so I think that's a good way of doing it, but there has to be some skin in the game about it. So for example, if they do decide to get rid of the national champs, as an example, I don't know if they will, but everyone likes to see who the best in their country is, and so I think having a competition after the Open for a national champ, which might not necessarily be endorsed by CrossFit, but I think that's a good idea, because that brings in that that commonality of that this is the best person, and that best person in let's say the UK gets to go up against the top 10 in the UK, and then it's I think there's merit and there's legs in that. I don't know how how that would pan across the the world. I mean, I don't know how it is in Hong Kong, but you do want to see that the fittest in the Hong Kong, male and female, are what they say they are, because even though the Open is a fairly rigorous competition, I think because people have I don't want to say they've milked the system, and there's so much that, you know, sometimes people have gone to competitions. You're like, is this person really saying how good? Does that make sense? So it gives them more validity again, and I just think that allows, you know, people more exposure to it, and it gives someone to work towards. So let's say you've got a newbie guy coming in. He's like, I just want to be able to go to that national championship. You know, so yeah, that's the way I see it evolving.
I mean, it's like, I think, like you said, it's still so young. 10 years in the grand scheme of a sport is nothing. So yeah, I think that's a really good. I haven't really thought about it to that extent, but you know, like having an arena-based competition for each country to then battle out to find the fittest in the country to then earn your stripes the next stage, and having different divisions, and whether it's a knockout competition or a league that runs all year. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what pans out. But I think it's definitely think it's here to stay, and I really hope it does stay.
Yeah,
because it's.
I mean, it's fun.
Like
it's fun. I mean, I guess coming from a team sports background, I think. You know, so having an identity, like with my gym, you know, whenever we go and represent the gym at a competition, you know, there's an element of pride in there, you know, and I dare say it's the same for those individuals who go and compete as well. If you know what I mean, there's always like a tiered effect. It's like they love to be representing the gym, and then maybe from there could be something where you, like, you know, for us. Us Europeans like our country badges. So like Wales, you know, we always try and win the Six Nations in the rugby, and I think they'd be awesome to have a representation of Wales at some point. But I mean, realistically, when we're looking at it, we're a population of 3.5 million, similar to New Zealand, who've got a representative. So it's all these different things. I mean, you know, America last year, or if you have a look on the men's side anyway, but America get most men to qualify to the CrossFit Games, but yet only one American's always ever crowned the fittest, you know. And so Matt Fraser is the fittest in the world, and the fittest in I don't know if Noah Olsen beat him in the Open last year. I can't remember. Anyway, you can see that, you know, when we sort of go in, oh well, it's unfair that we're not getting representation. Well, America's 300 million. They only got one. You know, they only get to say fittest in America on that. So yeah, how that augments itself over time, I don't know, but. I just think if people don't necessarily take it too seriously, obviously the elite level guys need to and have to, because that's their careers. But it's always you've always got to have something to aspire to, and that aspiration needs to be in line with an individual's ability, basically. So if someone likes to compete and they're like, I want to go to the CrossFit Games, I'm like, okay, well let's get to this level first, and then we'll see how it is, you know. And that's based on my experience with a couple of athletes. So one of the guys that was in the team in 2014, I don't want to say he was just a normal guy off the street, but had some crazy athletic ability. So like his name's Dan Force. He's based out in Singapore now. But I just got to tell this story because it's, for me, it's kind of remarkable. He's just a guy, started at the gym, looked terrible with his top off, and hopefully he watches this and he can smile and reiterate the fact that he says that himself. But then I watched him clear something like a 45-inch box jump, and I'm like, what the heck? You know what I mean? It's just that you've got genetic potential right there and right then. And then from that moment, you know, when you sort of see, oh, there's something there, he nurtured it. He trained hard. Bear in mind, he worked full time. But he never took it too seriously. But anyway, cut a long story short, really good. Loved working in the team. Went to his first individual competition and was like, shit, hated it. You know, even though he's got the ability, he was just like, it's not worth the stress and what have you. So going to that individual competition was enough for him to understand at what level he's at. He likes competing, but he doesn't want to compete at that level because it's just not. Does that make sense? It's like
Absolutely.
he doesn't mind grafting. You know, there was no issues on. There's no issues on him or how he performed. It was just the fact that like he's going up against guys who basically this is their thing, and he was just like, nah, like, do you know what? I just do this as a social, and I just want to have that. Does that track? I think that's what's needed for the longevity of the sport, because the sport is only ever going to be based how big the bottom of the pyramid is, and you know, for that elite level. So there's more people you can get in doing the sport, and there needs to be a clear distinction between the class versus the sport as well. So that's something that we're trying to do in the gym when we reopen, is that people who want to compete, doesn't matter what level you want to compete at, but there's going to be a slightly different distinction between the group fitness model versus the group competition or group sport model. So I don't know. It's exciting. And I think a lot of people are on the same wavelength in regards to the next steps, etc.
Nice, mate. That's some awesome insight, and it's definitely got my brain churning over now because I love this kind of stuff as well. So thanks for sharing that, mate. All right, Andy. Well, mate, it's been a fantastic chat. We've covered lots of different topics there. Yeah, absolutely. Mate, to leave our listeners now, where can they find out more about you?
Well, I've decided that I hate social media, but it's one of those things I have to kind of keep some form of appearance on it. So my Instagram, which I don't post a lot of, is at Edwards, EDWODS, on Instagram. And then if you follow Dragon Athletic and Odyssey Training, you'll get some insights into bits and pieces there. And you'll be kept up to date on what new developments happening from there, basically. I think, Instagram's the best place to find any information and contact us if you need to.
And I'm guessing you won't be traveling out with Jamie to the games.
No, I don't think that's the case this year. Elliot's taken my coach's spot. So and the thing is it's different. I've always wanted to go to Aramas, to be honest with you, and so I might have to do that on my own social time. We'll have to wait and see. It's a different year this year. They are going to crown the fittest men and women, but if all the athletes get there and they get there in good time and no one pulls out, I think it's going to be an unbelievable spectacle. And I mean, like, let's say lockdowns happened again there, it might be just, this is what has to happen for the sport for a while. It's where it's just behind closed doors, with television access and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, I don't know if you caught the Rogue Invitational, but they did an amazing job, and speaking to Jamie after, she said, it was really good. A bit weird training with working out with no music on and no one against you, but that's the rules of the game for that particular competition. And the rules for the game for this year's CrossFit Games is 30 men, 30 women, Aramas, September 14th onwards, and we'll see what Dave Castro is going to throw at them. I mean, he knows that ranch inside and out, so I'd like to see a couple of nostalgic workouts. So, I mean, we know that we're going to get some form of a long run, whether that's carrying something or whether it's just all out and out. I'm kind of thinking that they might even try and emulate what that Adam Klink's just recently done, and how fast you mile, how big's your back squat, and then how many pull-ups can you do unbroken? It's that kind of, that kind of thing, which I think's a test, across the board, which, I could go and do, you could go and do, and then we could sort of like measure ourselves against them versus, let's say, the clean lad. You can still measure yourself against them, but, it's like, wow, I'm like literally just starting on the first bar of some of these guys. So it's a bit like, I'm on the first bar and that's it. But like with that, you can complete it in the entirety. So that's what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm excited for. But thank you very much, Ed. It's been great to waffle on, and hopefully I haven't bored everyone too much.
No, mate, it's been some great insight, and appreciate you sharing all this. And thank you for your time, mate.
Yes, cool. Thank you. If there's just
All
one
right,
thing
Andy.
I
Yeah,
want to say, it's like, for people who are into their training, just keep it simple. Because I find that it's the whole virtuosity thing, which Coach Glassman and CrossFit prevail. Is like, do the simplest things is doing the common uncommonly well, and that will lead you up to more technical and demanding tasks. But yeah, just get the basics in, get that foundation in, and then just have some fun from there.
completely agree, mate. All right, Andy. Thank you very much, mate. You have a great day.
Cheers then. Thank you.